argue with the fact that when you host a tournament and you bring everybody else on the continent to your country, it should give you a bit of leverage, at least if for nothing at all, to market your country. So how do we make it count? The stories, though, coming out of the Africa Games in the last few days is proving a bit challenging. Challenging that objective we set for ourselves for investing that much into the Games. If at all, the stories I've seen in international media circles have not been positive. A lot of it has been negative. So let's examine why that is the case. But most importantly, all is not lost just yet. How do we recover what we've already destroyed in the last few days with the next few days before the Games end? Is a fundamental question because we've already put in the investment. What do we know tonight? A few things. Just the basics. We like numbers here. We have a total of 13,000 athletes, officials, volunteers, and guests coming from all over Africa into Ghana to compete, but also to make sure that the Games go according to plan. So this is actually good. You have all these people coming in. Some of them will spend some money. There is an economic spin-off from that. So that argument is great if you begin to look at the numbers of solely those participating or making the event happen, right? So that is positive. What else do we know? We've also invested quite a bit of money to have infrastructure that we did not have before. So we have now the University of Ghana Stadium. You drive there possibly right now, you will see that the lights are on, the floodlights are on. We spent $34 million on it. And then you go to Baltimore, you have $145 million that we pumped into the Baltimore infrastructure. And then you go to the Games Village, where we spend $16 million, a total of $195 million. The fundamental question to ask, though, that we always will ask on the show when we spend this amount of money, considering the kind of economic crisis we're currently facing, is this really worth it at this time? But of course, you have to go back a bit, because this is not something that right to host this is something that we won in the last 2 years. We won it before COVID struck, before the economic crisis began to bite, but we found money to do it. So if you've invested in it, you better make good use of it. You better make it count. Is that what we are seeing right now? Many say we're seeing the opposite of this. You're not making this investment count. In addition to the amount I mentioned of $195 million, we also spent $47.7 million on operational expenses. And what was this used for, according to the ministry? Paying allowances, accommodation. Well, the athletes participating in the All Africa Games will have to sleep somewhere. The hotels, the transportation, the internal arrangement, the medical equipment, and others. All of it comes together to form that particular bulk sum that I introduced you to, $47.7 million. So we've spent some money to ensure that the games go on smoothly, so we don't have challenges, right? And for me, that figure is important, because we had said to ourselves that we anticipated that the number of people who are going to come in will need to ensure that their movement is facilitated. And so let's spend $47 million. And that's a lot of money for a poor country like Ghana, right? This, in essence, is the breakdown, but also a picture of the comparison between what Morocco spent in 2019 and what we are spending in 2024. And remember that, yes, of course, it's 2024, but we spend the bulk of the sum last year to build, to set the stage for this. And look at the gap here. We're talking about $46 million for Morocco. We are talking about $242 million. What is accounting for this significant disparity in what Morocco spent and what we are spending? Morocco is a far advanced sporting country, so the investment and the infrastructure possibly is already there. So you don't need this much to spend to get your infrastructure up to scratch, right? But still, that 46 million compared to 242 million is just jaw-dropping. The gap there is jaw-dropping, right? So that in itself raises a few eyebrows. Again, fundamentally, we are talking about a country in economic crisis. And so these questions are important. Yes, there's national pride at stake. People like the fact that we are hosting this, but priorities are important. But if you're going to spend it in a time like this, you better be sure you're getting value for money, right? And when you begin to compare this, you begin to see why the questions are being asked and raised. And then fundamentally, if you're spending that much, then you better also prepare your athletes to bring the pride. The pride is not just hosting the event for others to come and take away the medals. It's also about performing well, getting your athletes to show that this is our country, and so we're gonna make Ghanaians proud, and that's where also the pride is. I believe that the pride is far more in winning more gold medals in the tournament than necessarily spending $242 million on infrastructure. Because as we know, even for the infrastructure that we have currently, trust me, our maintenance culture will in the next year or two, we'll go back to these places and we'll begin to ask questions about what happened. You don't have to look far. Accra Sports Stadium, what we did with the Kumasi Sports Stadium, we build them, but we don't maintain them. And so it becomes a liability and not an asset eventually. But when you win the gold, that is how you begin to market your country, because people remember you. I'll come to the point about why we all know about Egypt. We know about Morocco. We know about South Africa when it comes to the games, because they win the most. And just check the global reports. A lot of the reports have been about the countries topping the medal table. It's not necessarily about Ghana hosting it. That is something we should pause for a second to think about. And if you look at this particular graph here, it tells us that over the years, our medal haul has been dropping, right? So 2003, we had 24 medals, all the way down. And this has been consistent, to the point where in 2019 in Morocco, we had only 13. So something is fundamentally wrong with the whole architecture around our participation, right? And then you come to hosting it. My prediction is this 13 in 2019 will fall even further. That's what the evidence shows, because from 24 in 2003 to 13 in 2019, the trend is very obvious. Hosting, will it change anything? My guess will come into the conversation later, but this isn't great enough, is it? And then you look at the medal haul, and this is as of this afternoon, but I want to show you what the latest medal table looks like. And this is what a medal table looks like right now. You look at the country like Egypt. Egypt has a significant haul when it comes to the medals, a total of 75 medals in total. That is pretty impressive. You have Algeria there with 52, and then you have South Africa with 45. Where is Ghana? Ghana is somewhere down there with a simple 4, right? In the reports that the global community will be talking about, they will not be talking about who hosted it per se. The focus will be on who led the medal table, right? Look at every tournament. The guys who win get the best coverage. The guys who win, the guys who play in the finals, they get the best coverage. But the country obviously leverages on the back of that, but it pales in comparison to the attention you get when you win. The last time there was a World Cup, what do you remember? Do you remember the host nation, or you remember that Argentina won and there was a certain Lionel Messi? That is my point. And that medal table you just saw, the live one, shows that we have spent a lot of money for only so far 4 medals, and that isn't good enough, right? So why did we spend $242 million to build infrastructure and to have operational expenses, and not spend $2 million to get our teams ready? And we've been hearing complaints, have we not? We've had a few. We've had, for example, the lights at the Cape Coast Stadium. In spite of all the monies we spent in this, we somehow conspired to bring negative publicity to the event, right? If you haven't watched, this is what transpired. out. We're hosting this, and we saw that happen. And it was picked up by the international media, right? That view there went viral. It went viral. That view there went viral. And I was reading the reports on BBC and elsewhere where countries, the athletes from other countries say they were left stranded. They were shocked. They were groping in the dark when this happened. That is an embarrassment. For spending 242 million, you better get it right. So why didn't we have a generator on standby, considering that everybody knows that we're having power challenges right now? That's a fundamental question that must be asked. And then you go to one that also shocks me greatly. So this weekend, the cycling competition was held up for a long time. Why? Because the ambulance that must accompany the cyclist did not have fuel in it. Right? I mean, that is shocking. And again, this was picked up by international reporters because this is a global event. This is a continent-wide event. The ambulance did not have fuel in it. And so the whole cycling competition was held up for a while until somebody manages to find fuel for the ambulance. That is just setting ourselves up for international ridicule. It's not us. We're just reporting it. Yes, spend the money, but make damn sure that you are making the most from that money you spend, 242 million. And then we have the cyclists who have been complaining that the equipment that they've been using is substandard. In fact, it's not up to the recommended standard for competing in cycling competition. They were giving aluminium bikes, when the international standard is to have different bikes made of a different material that is lighter, right? And that, again, is a fundamental issue. Fiber bikes is what they were expecting to have, but they were giving aluminium bikes. And so the competition, you have failed before you even start because everybody else who's using the fiber bicycles are able to go faster. That's one complaint that we heard from the athletes themselves, the Ghanaian athletes who were participating. Again, players receive the equipment late. It's another issue. Some of them a day before they compete, so they haven't been familiar with what they're going to use. The badminton players, for example, went to the event in the bucket of the vehicle of their coach. So they complained there was no vehicle to transport the Ghanaian athletes playing badminton. Why? When we spend 47 million on operational expense to provide transportation for everybody, your own athletes, they had to get into the bucket of your vehicle, of your coach, to get to compete. Some of them actually have clothes coming that are not their size. The shoe sizes were wrong. It is challenging commentary on hosting, especially when we spend 242 million. So tonight, my guest will join me for a conversation, right, on this matter. And we also have, infrastructure that is not complete just yet to reduce your cook page. The lane of the turf is yet to commence. Hockey will now begin later when it's supposed to begin earlier. So let's have this conversation. We spend the money, so let's talk about it. How do we fix this? How do we somehow correct this? I mean, we've already spent the money, but between now and the time that the games end, we need to find a way of bringing glory back to the name Ghana in the wake of the negative reports. How do we do that? But again, who decided to spend this money without thinking about our athletes' competition and preparation into this, right? My guest will join me for a conversation. It is your taxpayers' funds that was used for this. Let's have this conversation right now. At the end of it, I will encourage you to join and go to the stadium and watch and participate. That in itself is a question about publicity. Where is the publicity? Where is enthusiasm? Because money was devoted for that. The 47 million, part of it was to be used to encourage for publicity. I haven't seen. I want to go there and watch swimming. I'm struggling to get the details for this. Tonight I'll get it for myself and hopefully for you too. Stay with me. Thank you for staying with us here on PM Express. I love sports. Let's talk about it, especially when we invest a lot into it. Everybody will tell you investing in sports is great. But once you do, you better be sure that you're getting value for money. And PM Express is always brought to you by Syntex Tanks. It is strong, it is tough. Alomo Bitters experience greatness in every moment. Ghana 8th Commission. Pepsodent, every smile matters. And no matter your water needs, Syntex Tanks has it all. They are first to introduce a double layer tank, and now you can also have as many layers as you want. Syntex Tanks is first to introduce the white inner layer tanks in Ghana. We now introduce you to the customer specs order. They are bespoke, any size, any color. They have 7 years warranty. They are across the country. Call them 0244 335 168. Shop online at syntexgh.com. A strong, a tough. And then also there's Pepsodent Cavity, which I use, and I recommend it because they have perfluoride and microcalcium ingredients sealing tiny and invisible holes in your teeth. This prevents cavities, keeps your teeth strong and mouth healthy. Pepsodent, every smile matters. My guest joining me for a conversation today is Achu Tomaklo, is my colleague here, and he has a special focus on the Africa Games. He's been covering this for us since it started. He is very immersed in the realities of the Africa Games. Gary Al Smith is editor at Joy Sports, also joined us on Zoom, also following this very closely. Jerome Motri, too, is a former editor of the Kotoko Express. But in the studio with me is, I guess, the biggest celebrity of all, Dan Kwekuyibwa, is the head of communications at the local organizing committee. And I took a picture with him just before we started. I had to disclose that because obviously, as you know, he's a very famous, powerful man when it comes to the sports circles. But I'm happy that he can join me. Today I get to ask him the questions, and he must answer. Normally he does the questions. So I'm delighted that you joined us, right? Let's start with the latest. So where are we tonight with you were there today?
Yeah.
Right. Where are we tonight with the games?
So we're actually expecting to get 2 medals in swimming. The women's 50-meter breaststroke, where Nadia Ajay has been competing, but she came up 7th in the final. And then Nubia Ajay, I beg your pardon. And then we had Abeku Jackson, who also won Ghana's first medal in swimming at the African Games only 2 days ago. Unfortunately, someone false started in the final for the men's 100-meter butterfly today. And so that final has been rescheduled for tomorrow. In terms of chess, we have been sent packing because unfortunately we could not go beyond the quarters of the competition. That is for chess. I was at the Laboma Beach today where the beach volleyball contest took place. Ghana played 2 matches, the men's team. The first of those was versus Togo. We recovered from the first set's loss to win by 2-1. And then at 2 p.m. we beat Senegal by 2 straight sets. The female team also beat their counterparts from the Gambia by 2-1. Just like the men's team, they also recovered from the first set's deficit to win by 2-1. However, the third match for the men's team and the second match for the women's team could not be played because of a hiccup. Now, per the schedule that the organizers have given us, there are not supposed to be any night matches.
There?
Yes.
Because, of course, we have floodlights at the sports stadium here. I'm talking about...
At the beach volleyball.
At the beach volleyball.
Laboma Beach.
Yeah.
They are not supposed to be night matches. But the game between Nigeria and Egypt, the women's beach volleyball group stage game, traveled a bit later into the night.
The University of Ghana has floodlights, right?
Yes, it does. Okay. But so the whole idea of not playing those matches in the night is that you do not have the floodlights. If the schedule included night matches, then you would have floodlights. Now, even though there's a bit of lights there, those night matches at these games need to be of a certain intensity. I think 1,000 watts or 10,000 watts.
And we didn't have
before. So we didn't have that. And because of that, we did not schedule any of the matches for the night. But this one happened to travel into the night. And so eventually the organizer had to truncate the match, ended it abruptly.
When did it start, though? Because that is a curiosity. Because knowing exactly that you don't have...
I think shortly after 5 p.m.
But everybody knows if you start a game shortly after night, 5 p.m. in Ghana,
exactly,
you are definitely going to play in the dark.
So that's what happened. So that is going to be the first on tomorrow's schedule, Nigeria versus Egypt, the women's game.
So clarity. Yeah. So the players actually started playing?
Yes. They were in the second set.
So that would have been able to play for what, an hour or 2?
No. So for beach volleyball, 3 sets. 2 sets, and then in the third, if one team is not able to win 2 straight sets, we go to a tiebreaker in the third set of the first team to reach 15 points.
Okay.
So we were in the second set when, unfortunately, the officials had to call off. So once that match was called off, Ghana's scheduled match with Burkina Faso for the men's team And the women's team were also going to play Burkina Faso. Automatically had to be closed.
So this is a simple organizational issue. Whoever was managing that
needed to ensure that once
you don't start at 5. I mean, because if you start at 5, you would
even
definitely
after 4:30, you make the determination that
take the game to the next day. To the game to the next day. Okay, Gary's with me. Gary, so where do you stand on this Africa game so far? I mean, I know you raised concerns, and concerns have been there even before we started. Now we've started. Have your concerns been validated, or have you been proven wrong?
Good evening, everyone. I believe that the concerns have been, validated. You remember the first reports that blew the alarm on the problems of the Africa Games came from Joy Sports, the one that has been referenced copiously by the LOC chairman, Dr. Kukufu-Asare, at every opportunity. You know, the one we went and saw just the bush and the cattle grazing there. Remember that report?
Yes.
And so that was the first time in 2021. We've come a long way. Botiman has been built. Legon has been spruced up. And some renovations have been made elsewhere. However, my colleagues, one in the studio with you, Victor, Fent, and the others, have traveled more in the last few months across the length and breadth of the capital and have brought us the problems as they have seen. So it had to do with the finishing of the various facilities, right? So you see them standing there, but then you see little challenges, and that's what we've seen in the past week. Today I just posted, something about the podiums. I don't know if you saw that post.
No. What about the podiums?
Yeah, the podium. They had used an A4 sheet to write the numbers 1, 2, 3. A4 sheet for the podiums.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. So these are some of the small issues. There are carpentry works that are still ongoing in certain places as we speak. Okay, so there's that. And you ask yourself, if we have used about $200 million, Evans, this is dollars, United States, Joe Biden dollars we are talking about here. We shouldn't be having these issues, or they shouldn't be at this scale or to this scale. Because if you compare, only last year, again, Joy Sports was very well represented with George Addo Jr., Fento, and Moftau at the World Athletics Championships in Budapest, right? You know how much those games cost?
Tell me.
180 million euros.
180, and that was it bigger in terms of participants?
World athlete in terms of quality, every metric.
Yeah.
Right? That costs 180 million euros to put together. So if you've got that and you tell Ghanaian taxpayers, because this is and was an opportunity for Ghanaian taxpayers to look at the rest of Africa and say, beyond the return in December, after we have given you the jams, the best party in Africa, we can give you the best sporting atmosphere in Africa. Come to the motherland. We are not doing that. So that's it, really. The expectations have not been met to the degree that we expect.
The cost question is fascinating indeed, because the Morocco one has been cited. I cited it in my intro, and then you cited the global athletics too, with the cost there. That is a question that must be answered at some point. But Jerome, I mean, what about you? I mean, the story that shocked me the most. And by the way, just for the avoidance of doubt, this is a tournament that I am in favor of, because obviously we've been complaining for a long time that we're not investing in athletics, etc. So of course, if you're investing 242 million in that lesser discipline, so-called, to build infrastructure and etc., it's good. I mean, legacy, provided you can maintain it, because you have the infrastructure to train more people to go and etc. So at some level, it's good. Question is about timing and priority now. But then I hear that cyclists were ready to cycle. The ambulance that was supposed to accompany them didn't have fuel. That was a shocker. That definitely was a shocker. I mean, as for the Doomsaw bit, it's a whole different conversation because, of course, you are a global showpiece. It is beyond the continent. You have to put your best foot forward, especially if you spend 247 million. Where do you stand on this question about, are we making it count?
I think we are making an effort to make it count in the face of the general problems we have with sports administration in the country. And I have been very clear about the way we've gone about sports development in our country. I don't think we are doing sports development. A lot of the things we are doing are done on impulse. We wait until the last minute. We look at whether or not we can save ourselves from being embarrassed. We rushed in and we spend anyhow. And that is not sports development. As I listened to your intro, you made mention of Morocco, you made mention of Egypt. All the countries you cited, they do not do things the way we are doing here. And that is why you organize these games and have problems. And I'll tell you what, it's a culmination of the lack of seriousness in terms of whoever is leading our sports development agenda, if at all there is a sports development agenda. And also, I would say, undue political meddling. And I'm sorry to say this, I do not think that the LOC is in charge of this competition. I am afraid that they have been more or less put somewhere, and some other people are handling this competition because, Evans, I have seen some international games, even if I have not traveled to the World Athletics Championship or the games that Gary was referring to. I have followed them closely on television, and I have seen how some of those games have been organized. And I have had also a very close look at how things are being done here. And even as against the last time Ghana, hosted an international competition. And this is not how we went about the business. It clearly tells you that things are wrong with the way there are certain things are not on.
Yeah,
I don't think
normally we'll blame lack of resources. But from everything else I've heard, this is not one of those events or tournaments that lack of resources is an issue because we spend a lot of money already.
It's about allowing the right people to do the job, because you see, all the things that we are talking about are technical issues. If cyclists do not have the right bicycles to use for their competition, it is not a political matter. A politician doesn't decide that. You leave it to those with the expertise who understand what this competition requires and what a cyclist must have to be able to participate. I heard the chef de mission, or one of the officials in the morning, saying that he's not even aware that some athletes were put in a bucket of a pickup. And I was surprised. He said that he's not aware. He was even challenging the journalist as to whether that information is even true, until the journalist went on to give names. And then he backtracks to say he will go and check. That clearly tells you that he's not on top of it.
Stay with me. Dan Kwekuyeboah has been listening. Dan, how do you respond to the concerns that have been raised? And Dan is obviously with the LOC.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, Evans. One thing we must not lose sight of is that this is the first time Ghana is organizing a multi-sport event. And if you do comparison with respect to the strength of our economy, especially when it comes to the spending, to a large extent, I will agree with you. But if you do comparison, for example, what my brother Gary was alluding to,
World Athletics
Championship, it's a single event. No matter how well it was organized, it's a single event. This is 29 disciplines. This is a competition that involves 29 disciplines. So obviously, the challenges will not be the same as organizing a single event. Of course, some of the mistakes that have occurred were avoidable. But we must also admit that for Ghana as a country, it is a learning process for us.
Really?
Yes.
How long have we had to prepare for this game? The game?
Evans, it's a different thing to learn something, and it's a different thing to practically experience.
We won the right in
2018.
Won the right in 2018, but
So
the
we've had
LOC
6 years?
was put together 2 years after. And then immediately we were put together, COVID set in. Just as we're about gaining ground, the unpass between the African Union, ANOCA, and UXA also cropped up. So we had our challenges. That is not to say we should justify some of the happenings.
Did we?
But how did that unpass affect our preparations?
No, it did. Let me tell you why. Sponsorship is one area that were badly affected. You go to a sponsor and ask for a sponsorship support, and he tells you when is the games happening, and you'll be stuck. You don't know what to tell the sponsor. And no serious sponsor would want to deal with a group that does not know when the event is happening.
So we began active preparation for this when?
When the unpass was resolved.
So this is when? Last year or the year before?
February last
That
year.
was last year, and it took the intervention of His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo for the unpass to be resolved.
When you say unpass, between
We had to, between the stakeholders, ANOCA, UXA, and AU. You know, the AU are the
So this
custodians
is
of the
okay.
games.
The others didn't want to participate.
When they held the Morocco tournament, they had a tripartite agreement that going forward, we're going to organize the games based on ABC. AU unilaterally decided to cancel the tripartite agreement. And the rest of the group said, no way. It is either we boycott it or you bring us in. We flew them to Kempinski. We couldn't solve the problem. It took His Excellency Nana Addo to fly to Ethiopia, Addis Ababa. The main business he was going to do there was an AU meeting, but he had to spend time on the flip side to attend that meeting, spend about 3 hours, sit in the meeting to ensure the unpass was resolved. It was only after that we saw our way clear. So quite apart from the fact that
So this was February last year.
So quite apart from the fact that we do not have the experience of having organized a multi-sport competition, these were also the challenges that we faced. So we shouldn't be too hard on ourselves.
No, we have to be. I mean, especially when you're spending that much. And I have said, this is not criticism. The amount of itself and the timing is a whole different conversation. But once you decide to spend that much, you better get it right. You don't disagree with that. I mean, what we've seen now is that we spend on infrastructure. But we actually brought a lot of negative publicity on ourselves because of the way we managed the whole process of the games themselves.
Well, to some extent, you can't run away from the fact that there have been some negatives.
It's been shambolic.
But equally, there have been so many positives as well. A lot of Ghanaians were watching the opening ceremony and they were amazed. Some were just opposing the opening ceremony of the African Games with La Côte d'Ivoire. And they all drew conclusion that indeed this was a better one. There are a lot of positives. When the tournament started, Ghana moved from 0 medals to 4 medals in a day or 2.
But we've been stuck at 4.
Yes, but it tells you that before the competition...
Egypt is at 75.
No, if it took you 2 days to amass 4 medals, it is possible that by the end of the competition, you can amass more than 20. It is possible.
Actually,
But Evans, a lot of the things Dan is saying here are, I understand his job, but the reality is that everything we're seeing is because we have not planned. Like from the government to the sports ministry, have not planned for these games.
No, that is...
Dan was aware of the Commonwealth Games in 2018. There was a seminal moment in Ghana's participation at that tournament. The cycling team did not have the appropriate cycling equipment. There was a young man in Queensland named Peter Spencer. Listeners can Google him up. He saw the equipment the Ghanaian team was using and then approached them and told them that what you have did not match the quality required to compete at that level. It was the same aluminium bicycles that they were using.
no,
So he
they did a fiber, right?
Just let me
Fiber. Hey,
So he started a GoFundMe for the team. The response from Ghana's Deputy Director for the Youth and Sports, Robert Safo-Mensah, was that we're not a poor country, we sent bicycles, we're not broke and all of that. Mohamed Sanoun, who was the CDM and also the president of cycling, he knew better. So he clarified and said, we did send bicycles. And here's the catch. Robert Safo-Mensah was referencing the equipment Ghana sent to the previous Olympic Games as the same ones they gave to the cyclists to go and perform.
Wow.
Now, we won the hosting bid for the African Games in the same year, 2018. After that embarrassment of a local cycler starting a GoFundMe to provide or procure appropriate carbon fiber road bicycles for Ghana's cycling team, in the year that we won the hosting right, one of the things, if we were futuristic and had planned for these games, one of the things we would have done is to find a way to raise the funds, because cycling is not cheap.
Yeah.
Some of those carbon fiber bicycles can cost up as much as $5,000. So you know that.
But in the grand scheme of things, if you spend 242 million, you should be able to afford.
So I'm saying that
5 million.
Even if that's
if you plan for it.
Yes, even if that's not how much you spent, you need to have a plan in place, knowing that cycling is not rich, but we didn't. Now, even for some of the other issues, right, like, for example, the badminton equipment, they are not the only sports that have their equipment arriving late. And that's why, for me, I will always say we did not plan for the games. The day before the table tennis competition started, I was at the conference center Dome when the African president was there to inspect the facilities that we had imported. So we imported 2 sets of equipment, one butterfly and then the DHL equipment for the table tennis competition. The African president inspected it and then said the butterfly equipment did not meet the specification. So if, for those who were there and those who watched Joy Sports and Joy News Reporter, you realize that at some portions of the footage that you will see butterfly equipment, but the main one that were being used that actually met specifications were the DHL. They arrived days before the tournament started. But we were fortunate because whoever advised the LOC and governments advised we purchase 2 sets of equipment, but they arrived late. We got lucky, and so the DHL was.
So the ones we got right, why are you claiming it was luck?
No, but I'm telling you that in the case of badminton,
if we got it right, it is luck. If we didn't get it right, it did not.
But that's to your credit. But that's to your credit.
So that's your credit. Otherwise, I would say that we were lucky.
But Dan, let Dan answer some specific questions. Dan, why is it that you have your athletes using aluminium bikes?
No, you know, I find it very difficult to understand the dynamics of this whole conversation when it comes to equipment. Just this evening, we had a press conference. 8 federation heads were present. And the minister said that they gave the specifications to the ministry to purchase the equipment. And none of them refuted that statement.
And the access to buy aluminium bikes?
That I can't tell. What I'm saying is that the minister stated categorically that all the specifications were from the federations. And none of the 8 federation heads denied that.
Yeah, but you've heard the athletes, right?
No, what I'm saying is that if you analyze what the minister said, it means that if we got it wrong, it did not come from the ministry.
But what are those?
Yeah, but others who are competing in cycling had fiber bikes.
Evans, I am the sports minister. You are the head of Ghana Cycling Federation. And I've given you the opportunity.
So the Cycling Federation advised us to buy aluminium.
Specifications required for your athletes.
So the aluminium bikes are new bikes. We spend money on them.
I have not seen it. But what I'm saying, I am making reference to what the minister said.
Let's clarify.
And that none of the federation heads denied it.
Then help us clarify.
All the 8 federation heads at the press conference this evening were rather lauding government and the minister for procuring those equipment for
really?
Oh yes.
Help us clarify.
Basketball, for instance, admitted that the ministry spent $500,000. Listen, basketball admitted that the ministry spent $500,000 to procure equipment for them, and they were praising the minister. So I'm surprised when it comes to this conversation, because I ask you to give me specifications. I'm not an expert. So if the equipment come and they are not fit for purpose, who do you blame?
Dan, we cannot accept this explanation because the minister has a greater duty of care in the expenditure of taxpayers' money. You cannot not after what happened in Australia 2018, that you do not know the appropriate cycling equipment.
We knew as of 2018, and that you said, that we
yes,
need fiber bikes.
So tell me,
and aluminium bikes were wrong.
Number two. So you answer the question. Number two.
No, tell me where the minister went wrong.
Dan, I'm asking.
If the recommendations came from the federations,
but Dan.
Number two. The second question for me is this. If indeed the ministry procured bikes, why is it that Michael Naba is using his personal bicycles?
What I'm saying,
where are the bicycles the ministry procured?
What I'm saying is a quotation by the minister at a press conference
less than
an hour ago. Listen. The LOC is not directly responsible for Team Ghana preparation. That is one thing that a lot of journalists are losing sight of. Our core duties is to organize the games. We are not responsible for Team Ghana preparations. Over the years, Ghana has had international games.
So the federation failed. Is that what you're saying?
No, that's what I'm saying. Okay. He is asking the sort of bicycles that were procured. But what I'm saying is that we are not directly involved when it comes to those equipment acquisition. But I'm only making reference to the statement made by the minister, which was not refuted.
Yeah, but you haven't answered the fundamental question. I'll bring Gary and Cohen. Let me rephrase.
I don't know why you don't want to understand me. Evans, you are the head of Ghana amateur boxing. So I am the minister.
So you are the spending.
I'm the spending officer. Yes. I give you the opportunity that Evans, give me specification that will suit your boxers.
But there's evidence.
If tomorrow you turn around to accuse me that I purchased wrong gloves for your boxers, who do you blame?
Okay, hold on, Gary. Hello, Gary.
Yes, I'm here, Evans.
Yeah, Gary. I know you wanted to make an intervention.
What's there to say except what Achu has said, that Evans, there's a duty of care. And you see, if I'm the head of my family, my son or daughter or my children say, we are going to school, we need these books. And I say, take this money and get these books to study. And they bring it back. They don't do well in the exam. And then they say, oh, these are not the books. The class teacher is going to blame them as much as the class teacher will blame me because of the simple phrase, duty of care. Because if I am the sports minister, I don't know about Honorable Mustafa Yusuf. If I am the sports minister, and I have procured, as Dan says, I wasn't at the press conference this evening, we sent a reporter, 500,000 United States dollars, Evans. And they say, let's buy X, Y, and Z equipment. And I don't double check as the sports minister to ensure that what they need is what they want, then there's a problem. I'll also say very briefly, that you see, the last games were in Morocco. I don't even want to waste too much time, so I'm just saying everything briefly. The last games were in Morocco. The same argument, you see, what we say something about multimedia. You inspect, what did he say? You expect what you inspect, or something like that, right?
Yeah. Well,
expect what you expect.
People do what you inspect, not what you expect.
Thank you. It's really as simple as that. Because if I am spending, I've not seen the numbers, but Dan, thank you very much for giving that. We are going to use that copiously in the news. 500,000 United States dollars to the basketball team. And I, the sports ministry, don't have a plan B to check that what they are saying, A, is true, even if it's true, that it meets current international standards as a fallback option, then there's a problem. And that's all I'll say. You see, everything we are saying here, and Dan's job is very difficult. That's why in all my critique, I have quietly absolved Dan because he literally is the mouthpiece. Yeah. He's in an incredibly difficult position. Dan is not a politician. Dan is not a technical person. He's not an LOC official. All he has to do is to say and disseminate what he has been given. Now, our job is to know things. And this is what we know, Evans. One, in this country, Ghana, we have more than enough capable people. Because you know what? we have the men and women who today, some are going to the Olympics in a couple months, and they will be in charge of some of the things that we are not letting them do here in Ghana.
Exactly.
And that's what Jerome said. Evans, let me repeat this. For all the 30 disciplines, every single one of them, the country Ghana right now, we have world class. I need to emphasize to people watching this show, we have world class administrators who are able and competent, tried and tested, who would have averted this fiasco, even if we put them in charge as late as last November. That's job is difficult, Charlie, so he can't talk. So Dan, you leave it for us to talk. Dan, leave it for us to talk. Look, Evan, I said we have world-class people. World-class people. If any country is hosting an African Games next year, they cannot do it without Ghanaians because we have some of the best people. The question that we will be asking after the games is, we have Evans Mensah. Why is he not doing this job and Gary Al Smith is doing this job? Because Evans Mensah has a track record. He has been here, he has been here, he has been here, he has been here. There are people who went to the World Cup in Qatar, Ghanaians. Now, guess what? Qatar invested millions of dollars. You know, the World Cup has how many countries? 32 teams, right?
Yeah.
Qatar invited the heads of security of all 32 countries, among other things. That remind me, it was the heads of security, caterers, and some other professionals, and give them free training, paid for their flights and everything, Evans. When was the World Cup? This is in 2022, December. But you will find that all these specialists are not part of the Africa Games because I don't know.
Okay.
So that job is difficult, and we have shot ourselves in the foot. Why? I don't know.
Well, I mean, Dan, a few other questions that have come up.
I want to make a point.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
You know, Dan said the World Athletics Championship is a single event or something. I don't think it's exactly the case. but we can even put that aside. I mean, Dan is in a very tight situation, like Gary was saying. You see, the point has to be made that all that is happening, it's because you need to have a system that is committed to developing sports on the basis of a set plan. And we know how the Moroccans are doing it. Gary has been in and out of Morocco. He can tell you how they have been committed to developing infrastructure in a way that excites everybody on the continent. And they don't spend as much as we have spent. So how is that possible? Look, Dan was talking about the LOC not being in charge of the Ghana team. That is true. Let's go to some critical aspects of the LOC's work. And I have said that I don't believe the LOC is in charge. On Saturday, when I went to the UG Stadium, the media center at the stadium was being fit. I mean, that was then that I saw people fixing tables for the media. I don't know any competition that open ceremony is done 24 hours later, you have people coming in to set up the place for the media. I have never seen one at any competition I have attended. So I'm saying that we have sidelined the expertise of certain people, and that's the point Gary just made. We know those who can do this job. We just didn't trust them enough to give them the millions of dollars that we say we have expended to execute this task for us. And it's the same thing we do with football.
Yeah, I don't want to get you started on football, because once I get you started on football, you're not stopping. But Dan, so bottom line, but I'm also curious, this ambulance that had no fuel, what happened? Have you investigated it? This was yesterday, I believe. Was it yesterday? Yesterday.
Oh, Ghana.
The LOC has created a pool of buses. And once you are engaged as a private service provider, the head of transport has to align you to have pool of buses. What happened was that the ambulance service started working with the LOC with their cars already fueled. So I think there was miscommunication. But what happens is that once you engage their services and they are come with their cars already fueled, as and when it is getting finished, you have to be informed that, okay, we came with 4 tanks at a cost of 1 cedi. It is now finished, so we need refueling. Unfortunately, there was a communication gap. So that affected the commencement of the cycling. That's the only explanation.
But somebody knew the game was about to start. The guy who's driving the ambulance knew the fuel was in the car was non-existent. And you waited for it to start before you start running around to find fuel.
It is a service you have outsourced. So you don't have direct control.
Okay. So what's going to happen? Because if there are no consequences, this will might continue.
Well, Evans, it will be difficult to punish somebody you have outsourced to help your cause. Okay. If the ambulance services were within the remit of the LOC, like if they were an agency under the LOC, then we can say that you did your job wrongly. So
and then the late arrival of the equipment for some of the athletes, well, why?
The late arrival, honestly, I have no answers to that. Because all I was told by the minister, that's why I'm saying that the LOC is not responsible for some of the issues we are raising here. That's why I am very careful quoting the minister for some of the issues.
The ones that you can clarify, the badminton equipment, were they the ones that arrived in the country late, or they were the ones that got stuck at the ports?
These are all issues that has got to do with Team Ghana preparation.
That you don't have answers to.
Exactly.
Okay, let's talk about something before we wrap up. Bottom line, you want people to go there. Publicity has been an issue. I have been looking for tickets to go and watch swimming with my sons. And I struggled. I'm a journalist. And I've struggled, right? I went to the website, the ticketing wasn't working, the text message. So tell me, people want to go.
Yeah.
How do they get tickets?
Honestly, if I were in charge, I wouldn't have charged at the gate.
Okay.
And of course, you cannot wash your dirty linen in public. But from the benefit of hindsight, if the Black Stars are playing in an empty stadium, how could you feel a Black Satellites game at the same stadium, or in a stadium that has a capacity of 40,000 plus? So if I were in charge, I wouldn't go for ticket sales. What I would have done was rather to get people, bus people for the optics to come and fill the stands for us.
But you're not in charge.
But I'm not in charge.
What it is what it is. So tell us, how do you go to the games?
On the day of the opening, for instance, I do not know whether somebody was trying to hack into our system or it was a sabotage. I don't know.
It went down.
It was 2 hours to kickstart the program. Everybody who accessed the platform had a notification that it was a sold-out event. Meanwhile, the stadium was not full. So I was wondering. In fact, I had a screenshot of people. People showed me screenshots that I was trying to buy a ticket with my family to come to the stadium, but the platform.
But this has happened before.
Okay, we need to wrap up. So people need to go. Just wrap up for me. So how do you get tickets now?
Well, I spoke to the ticketing team. What they are saying now is that, with the exception of the VIP, the rest they are not going to sell. The rest is going to go for free.
From when?
From tomorrow.
So I can just walk and go and watch. Okay.
If only, but you are a VVIP, so you can just. You have to buy a ticket.
I have to buy a ticket. Okay. No problem. I will. Of course. So from tomorrow, if you're watching right now, you can just go and watch the games without paying. Yes. Both at the Baltimore.
Go and sit at the VVIP.
Okay. Both at Baltimore and also at the
Legon.
And the Legon. Okay. That's good information. Everybody can go now and watch, and let's help them drum that information out, because we need people to go.
We will. Our stars are in town.
Okay.
Azamati, Joe, Paul, and.
For athletics. Okay.
Yes. But that starts, I think, on Monday.
Next week?
Yeah, Monday.
Okay. What's happening on the weekend? Because weekend is when we can also join the park.
So the games will continue. Tomorrow, for example, the 100 meter.
Tomorrow we are all working, so it's very difficult to go. I'll check. By the way, Dan, thank you very much. They say your job is very difficult.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. But you have to give us one line before you go. Which one have you picked in your work so far? Just one.
So the way you are boxing me to a corner, I am confused, because the job is difficult.
Drop one.
Just one.
Oh, it reminds me of gentleman bi ana oko tena trotro na okoshi a girl bi na or the boss na fine. The next day and of free girl ni say I mean we say ye pio we won't get to phone. I mean me say ye pio. Na the lady say pacho o the car ba be for me. I ain't funny share now say me the car.
The trot remember I'm fine. Enjoy the rest of your evening. That's Dan Kwekuyubwa, the man with a difficult task. He says on tomorrow you can go and watch it for free. So please make your way there. Let's make this one at least find a way of salvaging it. Enjoy the rest of your evening.